On Honey Badger Radio Classic 4, I had an exchange with a commentator who calls himself Julius Ebola. I'm going to respond to part of that exchange here. Feel free to read it in its entirely on that video. Julius Ebola. We can cry and moan about male disposability, which is a legitimate complaint, but what other deal is possible? It's a bad deal, to be sure, but it's the best one you're going to get, isn't it? It seems to me that men's rights activists would rather accuse feminists of being the real sexists while pushing for equality. That's much easier since you don't have to challenge the egalitarianism framework that we've all been forced to accept since the end of World War II. Both of you seem to think that if we just progress, we'll eventually achieve some new relationship between men and women, which will free us from our biologically rooted and inherited sexual strategies and all social and political consequences that stem from them. Okay, Julius, let me answer your questions with an observation. You're a conservative, but you don't know what you're conserving. The Western tradition was founded on active compassion towards men, the Sabine women rushing the battlefield to throw themselves on the swords of the Roman and Sabine men in order to save them both, in order to tell them to stop treating themselves as expendable in the service of women's sexual honor. That act of compassion towards men, that act of not treating men as expendable, was the foundation to a cooperative pact between men that created every aspect of the civilization we enjoy. Go take a trip to Washington, D.C. Look at the government buildings, Julius. Notice what they are inspired by. We still live in the cooperative institutions that act founded. We are still living in the shadow of a single act of compassion towards men. We still warm ourselves by the fire it lit 2.5 millennia later. A single act of compassion for men that we've built everything on. Let me tell you what you're conserving, Julius. Civilization is a set of habits that facilitate a cooperative relationship between men who share a sense of belonging. Civilization can only be born in the presence of compassion for men and respect for their value. What you are conserving are the rituals that enshrine and preserve that single act of turning away from male disposability that founded Western civilization. What you are conserving is a very old system of institutions created by cooperative relationships between men, made possible by compassion for men. You talk about crying and moaning about male disposability, as if you can't thank people who feel compassion for men for every scrap of freedom and prosperity you enjoy. And you do this as you declare yourself a conservative, yet you don't seem to know what it is that you're conserving. Do you also call yourself a God-fearing man as you piss on a statue of Jesus? I am more of a conservative than you, Julius, because I at least understand what conservatism is conserving. And without knowing what we're actually conserving, we're left dry humping the rituals of our ancestors, hoping this next hump will make rain fall again. The last question Julius posed to me was the following. Do you want society to fail? The answer is yes. Because when society failed during the Bronze Age collapse, we eventually got Rome. You know, the foundation of Western civilization. Of course, the real answer is society is failing. What are we going to do about it? 4 years ago, I created a series called Threat Narratives. It examined the life cycle of empire and explained why empires eventually collapse into competing narratives of blame and suspicion based on past oppressions. That should sound familiar. We're deep in terminal empire collapse. When I created that series, I knew how empires crumbled, but I did not know how they were born. Now I do. There are 7 billion people on this planet reliant on post-industrial technology, and habits of statecraft laid down in 500 BCE can't handle the societal stressors created by post-industrial technology. Just like the habits of statecraft laid down in the mists of time millennia before 500 BCE couldn't handle the societal stressors created by iron. It's a simple, unavoidable, mechanical fact. What you want to conserve, Julius, won't save you, and unless you know what it is you're actually conserving, you have no solution to offer. You should thank men's rights activists. They never gave in to the societal pressure to deny the truths of their lives as men. nor did they give in to the expectation that they treated themselves as expendable. And because of that, we, all of us, every single one of us, now has a roadmap of the problems facing society. And that roadmap points us to a solution, a true solution. Everything's shaking to pieces and about to explode, right? That's why you want to go back to the past where it's safe, to the warm embrace of social institutions that have been torn to pieces by technological progress and no longer exist. You want to go back, Julius, but there is no going back. We're strapped to 120 tons of liquid hydrogen that's already started to ignite. We're cresting the silver side of the planet's edge. At this moment, everything could go wrong. At this moment, there is no return, no safe landing. There's only crashing and scarring a trench into the Earth's crust, a civilization wide. Or maybe we'll just rocket into space and explode. Blow up into a billion bits of shrapnel that tumble burning to ash in the sky, like history's most expensive firework. If it feels like we're about to blow up, it's because we are. An engine is just a controlled explosion. And to control an explosion, you just need to know how to do it right. If I'm right, we now know how civilizations form and how they end. We now have the formula that will allow us to heal any social strife that technology causes. We now have the capability of managing exponential growth. We can now turn this explosion into an engine. That means we can take our future into our own hands. Now we turn fate into a lie, because fate is just the traps we lay for ourselves in our blind spots. We're exploding. That is a simple, unavoidable, mechanical fact. The question is, do we control it by embracing self-knowledge and the discipline to recognize fear is just a state of mind, or do we explode because we want to hold on to a past that no longer exists? Do we turn this explosion into an engine? And what's the point of even asking, what if it doesn't work? We have two choices now: open throttle and aim for the stars, or choose to crash because we are afraid to try. Every species gets one extinction event, one singular point in time that we cannot avoid or escape. If this is our extinction event, I want to go with my eyes on the future and throttle open, not covered in piss and crying for the past. But we're not going to explode. We're going to control the biggest explosion in human history. This is the best moment to be alive. The stakes have never been higher. Fail and we die as a species. No more chances, no do-overs, everything wagered on a single terrible gamble. But succeed, and we soar. I have some business to take care of. I'm switching our Patreon over from per creation to monthly. As my husband Jonathan pointed out to me, I won't be able to do the final switch over until our per radio show amount is over 8,000, so I can make sure the bills are paid. So please help us with this transition by going to Patreon and taking the total amount you want to give us monthly and putting it in as your per radio show amount, and then set the number of times you want to support to 1. Or you can select one of the new tiers and put the total number of times you want to support to 1 as well. Really, really appreciate if you would help us out with this. Thank you.